For as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with the concept of time and struggled with the human inability to be able to control it. So especially this year, I've had anxiety about wasting what are supposedly the best years of a person's life. But not too long ago, a thought popped into my head. Although this year can feel like time lost, without it, I wouldn't be this version of who I am now. A version of me that I think is much stronger than who I was at the beginning of 2020. And although I might be wrong, without this year, I think I would have lacked the growth that will ultimately make my remaining years that much better.
2020 started off the same as any other year. Break was finishing up, we went back to school, and we were just getting through the last few months of winter. January through February kind of blurs together since the holiday season is over, and I was just counting down the days until lacrosse. This was meant to be my senior season, my last year playing. We were already having so much fun as a team and planning out the rest of our season and our senior night until March 13th, the last day of the school year, but we didn't know that yet. At the beginning of quarantine, there was a lot of denial and tears, lots of tears, especially when Marshall's closed. My brother got married not even a week later. The wedding was nothing like they had planned, but our family was together and they got married on their special date. Then back to quarantine. First my eyes swelled up and eye drops, terrifying. Then I spent a lot of time outside, as everyone else did. I also got a little crafty, and I baked a bit. I did pretty much any crazy activity that distracted me from my boredom. And, of course, the mandatory family Zoom calls. Eventually, I got to hang out with other people. Outside, mainly in my own backyard, and safely social distanced. As spring came to an end, we were reminded of all the senior year activities we were missing out on. My mom was super mom and made up all my senior night with all of our sweet neighbors. My friends and I put on our own proms, just for the sake of getting those pictures and having some good food together. Of course, all of the mandatory cap and gown pictures, complete with a few cap tosses. We even had a senior parade. Once we wrapped up all of the graduation celebrations, my friends and I were still able to go to the beach together for our own senior week. We went to Bethany Beach in Delaware and we stayed in one of our family's beach houses. It was just a week full of having fun together and forgetting all about our crappy senior year. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard so often in my life. As soon as we got home, Marshall's opened. Thank God. I had no problem working my summer away. That was my happy place, and I missed it the most during lockdown. However, I did take a week off to get my wisdom teeth out, and afterwards, I celebrated with a lot of ice cream twists in a cone with rainbow sprinkles. The rest of summer was spent the best way that it could have been. I worked, I laid out in the sun, and I spent a lot of time hanging out with my very favorite people. Nothing was returning to normal anytime soon, but after losing out on our senior year and spending months in a lockdown with no clear end date, the summer felt therapeutic. I already know that these are going to be some of my most favorite memories forever. Either way, pandemic makes for a pretty unforgettable summer, right? So then came fall, and fall meant my birthday. I never thought 18 would go the way that it did. So at this point, I feel like I'm kind of ready for anything that 19 throws at me. That being said, after a crazy year with a ton of curveballs, I told myself that I would turn the rest of this year around and hopefully start 2021 off on a better note. We still have a month left, so who knows? But I would say so far, so good. Now, Let's talk about what went on in the world this year. Many people say that 2020's catastrophic events all began when Kobe Bryant and his daughter died in a helicopter crash. Shortly after, we found out about the coronavirus pandemic and went into lockdown. A lockdown which was protested, but oddly enough, not the craziest thing to happen in 2020. The world was on fire, literally. The West Coast suffered greatly. Meanwhile, some people were protesting more important things than mask mandates. The Black Lives Matter movement left a huge mark on history this year, as people all over the world marched for justice for those that were taken too soon, so tragically and unfairly. Another tragic death of this year includes Supreme Court Justice and feminism icon Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election, making Kamala Harris the first female, Black, and South Asian vice president in history. A pretty great way to wrap up such an awful year, if you ask me.